All right. What is going on? First of all, happy Easter, Danielle.
Happy Easter. What's up, player?
Hey, everything's good. Everything's good. Actually,
Yeah.
so when we get to the Q&A, believe it or not,
Mhm.
that's one of the questions that someone wanted us
Ah,
to answer about
that's
how we
fair.
communicate.
That
Yes,
is a fair question.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So
Mhm.
so we will do that toward the end, but we just want to say hello to everyone and thank you for joining in. This is episode number 4.
Look at
So
that.
yeah, how about that? So, um, it is when we talked about doing this weeks and weeks and weeks ago. Now, um, it's turned into something. It's exceeded my expectations. I believe it's exceeded yours too.
Mhm.
But what has really been cool is the way people have engaged around it. People have been reaching out to me. You and I were just talking earlier this week that you have
Mhm.
friends that reach out to you. So before we get into the village, because that's
Um,
today's topic, is the
yeah.
village. Um, Share a little bit about how people have been reaching out to you. What have they been saying? What kind of
Mhm.
things has anything surprised you?
I think I'm at a really fun, interesting age because there's people that are at my age, I feel like a lot of people are dealing with both at the same time.
Mhm.
And a lot of my friends are parents now, and they're being in that same space, and like, oh my God, So I think that that's really fun and interesting. I think the other thing is that I've noticed there's also mothers that can watch this. It's really not just about dads, it's about people that are in general trying to connect with their kids from distance, emotional distance, whatever that is, that distance. So I think that that is something that's been interesting too. Um, and overall, just uh, I've gotten a couple of people and they were like, man, it's just really cool to see that there's a relationship like this that exists. And while also that was really cool to say, he also said, which is very real, is I don't know if I could have that kind of relationship with my father,
Mm.
just in the way
Wow.
he is. Um, it doesn't mean that he doesn't want that and he's open to that. He just knows who he's dealing with. And so it was like almost like, man, that's awesome. But it also makes me a little sad that I don't have that. So I am through those moments have even more gratitude for our relationship and hopefully share this relationship that we have so that people can see that it exists. Look for that kind of connection with anybody, not just your
Right.
parents, right? To everybody.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, so the one of the things that I've heard from a lot of people around a lot of different things, and some of those things will pop up as we go through and get
Hmm.
closer to my favorite national holiday, Father's Day. Yay! That we are going to be as we move toward
It
Father's
really
Day.
anybody that's watching this is
Yeah.
he's not kidding.
Yes.
Literally Father's Day is the one.
So one of the things that I think that I've heard a couple of times is that people they know me, they didn't
Mhm.
necessarily know you and our
Right.
relationship. So there's at least one person I know that's watched a couple of times. They're like, are they like this all the time? Or is this like actually how it actually is? Not in a negative way, not like they were cynical or anything.
Right,
But
right, right.
as it went along, they were like, this is how they are like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most people that are in our village
Mhm.
know that. And so
They've known that for quite some time.
that is correct, and that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that. So we wanted to talk a little bit today. In the first half, we're going to talk about the village, and in the second half, we're going to, as we are morphing into the, responding to different questions that people have and
Mhm.
different comments. And Stephen James has already commented in. Awesome podcast. Thank you,
Thank
Stephen
you.
James. He also hangs out for the morning dance routine too, so that's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
but I think a big part of what we must acknowledge and should acknowledge is that this journey that we're
Mhm.
talking about is not just us, that there is a
Mhm.
village. There's the African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And
Mhm.
so and that is a fact. It absolutely does. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that and
Mhm.
how that plays out, because it doesn't always play out, I think, in the ways that people would expect.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so there's the village has lots of different pieces to it. So let's start by talking about um, our extended family.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
and I'm gonna let you roll first, because with uh, your relationship with your grandparents,
Mhm.
uh, it's has has always been, and is still today, golden.
Yeah.
So how did grandpa and
Mhm.
papa and
Mhm.
nana factor
Mhm.
in terms of helping you through
Yeah,
this along the
that's
line?
great. That's a great place to start. So um I'll go with, let's see, Nana and Papa first. Let's start with that.
Okay.
So for those that don't know, and I get teased about this, Brandy says Papa. I was like, you're your country. I was like, yeah, that's my Papa. That's what I called him. Okay. Um, so Nana and Papa are my dad's parents. So they gave me a sense of pride of the Gray name. They would always come to my games with matching outfits,
All the
matching
time.
shoes, and for quite some time they had the Grays jersey, the Negro baseball league. So
Hmm.
that's always been like our kind of our logo in a way, as a family, to have that. And it was just such a sense of pride, and I'm grateful that I had that, because there were so many of my teammates that didn't have anybody at their games,
Mm.
and I could usually look up in the stands and see someone,
Hmm.
whether that be, most times it was you, a lot of times it was my mom during the weekends when she could, but almost just as regular were Nana and Papa. So I think that gave me a sense of joy, but also like knowing that I come from that. Is really, I think, from that side and from them, I really gained a sense of legacy, self-respect for my last name, and for my family, which is um, feeling like I really come from a noble family, people that are changing things and doing awesome things. So that made me feel good. And then on the other side, my mother's mom, I did not get to meet. She met me, but I did not get to meet her. She passed when I was very young. But my grandpa, he lived in New York before, moved here when you and my mom got divorced,
Hmm.
and ended up living with us until both of my male grandfathers have passed on now. So hey to y'all, I know they're
Yeah.
listening and watching and probably grinning very hard.
Yes, no
Um,
doubt.
and so, but what grandpa gave me, he was in the house with me. So he was in the house with me really from third grade until I graduated high school and I moved out. He was still living there after even then.
Hmm.
Um, he really, he helped me with a lot of my homework when I was there. In some interesting way, he was my father figure in my mom's home. So,
Hmm.
and he took that very seriously. So he was, sometimes he would get in the way, but other times he was still my grandpa. So I could, I mean, it's still, yeah, I could get away with anything. Um, he picked me up from school because my mom did work late and my dad did travel. So they were, since he was there, he was the one who was usually picking me up from practices. Taking me like to things in the middle of the day, like doctor's appointment, different things like that. He was really, really big for me. So if we're talking about that part, that's definitely legacy and consistency. My grandfather told me never to say mines, and now I can't stand it if anybody else says it. And finally, he also taught me how to proofread.
Hmm.
So that's one thing, because I would always feel like I had it down. Like I was like, no, I wrote it. It's done. We don't have to do anything else here. It's perfect. And every time I would always find something. So he was the person that helped me proofread, and I think that has made me into a better writer, a better speaker, a better creator because of it.
Well, it's probably also raised the bar when it comes to
Hmm.
excellence for you in general. That
Absolutely,
if
absolutely.
it comes from you,
Hmm.
it does not leave. It does not leave this house until
Right.
it
You're
is
representing all of us.
that place. Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Hmm.
um, so I obviously your Nana and Papa are my mom and dad,
Hmm.
and uh, we talked in the previous episode about the fact that when uh, your mom and I separated, that's where I went to live first was,
Hmm.
with my parents. And
Hmm.
so I will tell you that the that was very difficult.
Hmm.
Not them, but me moving back home.
Hmm.
And so just because, I I established a home and a family, and then all of a sudden, I'm moving back to my parents' house. And I
Hmm.
think to some degree, that is a lot of kids' nightmare. A little bit
Right.
is that they have to go back. Now that I'm a parent, I can tell you it's also very often the parents' nightmare.
Touche,
um,
touche.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's a fact.
It is. I get it. I get it.
It's an absolute
Nobody
fact.
wants
But
this. Nobody wants it.
there was, I think it was having my parents so easily open their home was not just that was not the only part of it. It was a big part of it, but it wasn't the biggest part of it. The biggest part of it was that it was like with no shame.
Mm.
So I didn't get peppered every day with what happened, and all these it I didn't have to keep reliving the trauma of it
Mhm.
all the time. It
Right.
was just, this is where you are.
Mhm.
um my dad probably, I don't know how much my mom was cooking after all of us got out of the house, but I'm pretty certain that there was something on the stove every single night, because her baby boy, her firstborn, was back
Mhm.
in the house. So I think that was one of the biggest appreciations I had, was that I didn't have to have another trauma on top of that trauma that made me feel any kind of way. So, um, so I know my mom. Nana is always watching this. She shares every post that we do about this, so I know she's in there.
And
So
then,
yes, so we love you because we know that you were pivotal. You were the a big part of the central nervous system that helped
mhm.
everything keep moving. So love you, Mom. Happy
Mhm.
Easter to you. Um, but there's so let's expand the conversation though, because
Mhm.
uh, I also had siblings. Now,
Mhm.
people might not have caught earlier, but you're an only child,
Right.
and so with a lot. In fact, I was talking to one of my fraternity brothers just yesterday about the fact that his parents divorced, but there were two of them.
Mhm.
So they kind of had,
Yeah.
somebody to
Yep.
lean on,
Yep.
and you really didn't have that.
Mhm.
Uh, I did, however, in my brother. I'm the oldest of three, and so my brother had gone through before. Um, so it was nice to be able to have somebody to talk to that had been through it before, but
Mhm.
also, and I think this is probably one of the bigger takeaway parts about the village, is that the village works when the village just loves, not
Mhm.
when the village evaluates, or when the village, you know, um, analyzes, or the
Right.
village tries to fix, or
Mhm.
the village, for me, and I would say probably for us, worked so well because what the village did was love.
Mhm.
Uh, and there were things that we never talked about, as quite frankly, some things, even to this day, we never really talked about any particulars of this, that, or the other, because it didn't really matter, you know.
Mhm.
it was all about love. So um, my brother and sister, I remember my brother saying something to me about, when I was really, really going through, and because he had gone through before. So
Mhm.
uh, he was reminding me of some of the things I told him,
Mhm.
which was really
Right.
interesting because it's easy to have sage advice for people
Right.
when you ain't in it. But
Right.
when you're in it, you're like, and he was like, remember when you told me da 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 da. You
You're
remember
like,
when you told me?
mhm.
So so he was telling me things that I told him that honestly I didn't really even remember uh
Right.
talking to him about, because your mind is just a jumble uh,
Mhm.
in the middle of all of that. But um, so the village loved on us. Our family, our extended family village, just loved on us, and that goes to the family in Texas. It goes to the family in Ohio. We've got family all over the place. My mom had 15 brothers and sisters, so lots of cousins, lots of uncles and aunts, and they came from Texas to your high school graduation. My Uncle
Right.
Jack, who still
Mhm.
uh, um, gets on you about not telling him about all of your basketball games, so he couldn't go to them, from Texas, by the way. Um, so,
Right.
uh,
Right.
but but it was seriously awesome.
Mhm.
But there was another rolling set of villages that was really interesting, because you were in sports from the time you were like 7 or 8 years old all the way
Mhm.
through college.
Yeah.
So there were all of these villages, um, different little sports villages. And
Yeah.
so talk a little bit about that, because I don't know if you remember a week or a season where you were not going to practice, whether it was soccer or basketball, or as
Well,
we were
so I want to go back a little bit. So
okay.
a big part of my village, because in addition to that, because that's a whole, the sports village is quite the conversation I want to get
Yeah,
into. But what
yeah.
I also want to say is that I want to mention my Aunt Monet and my Uncle Terrell.
Mm,
Um, they were a big part of me having siblings before, like
mm,
I had stepsisters. So my cousins Nicole and Nia, they were my play buddies. I wasn't,
mhm.
because of them, and they didn't live very far from us. I was able to not be probably as weird as I could have been as only child, just because I was socialized. They picked on me, I picked on them. I was able to figure out social cues, little things like that. The only children, you really gotta trust me, you gotta be like thinking about those things because it's not natural. And so they were really, that was a big part of my childhood too, was seeing, at the time my uncle and aunt being married with their kid. It was just like, okay, this is, I at least had an example in some way that I didn't necessarily have in my own home of what that dynamic looks like.
Mhm, mhm.
So that was really good, and I think healthy for me too. Now, if we segue into the sports part, there was so many. I mean, just by doing karate, I ran into
Oh,
the
wow, I
guy
forgot.
that
We
was
you had
my
to start with
karate
yes.
instructor in TSA, like maybe 5 years ago. I was like, and he recognized me, which I was like, wow, you've changed, Danielle. Um, so that, I mean, from there to soccer, which was a big one too. I had a lot of my friends. That friend core group was really really awesome, and that was also a time that most of my teammates teammates were Muslim. So I
Mhm.
learned a lot about just being open to a whole nother world of how people, pray, and it was just a really cool experience too, to just be open culturally to that. So
Mhm.
that was that village, and we were fun. We learned a lot of stuff.
Shout out to the
um
Lady Attack. That's
yeah, to Lady
yes,
Attack. Yeah,
Lady
shout out
Attack.
to Lady Attack,
And
which,
Coach Gartrell, by the way.
yes,
It's probably
yes,
Coach Gartrell Jackson, I believe now.
yes, yes.
Um,
And that was one of my friends, Vinay,
mhm,
that we ended. She went to high school with me as well, but played soccer, um, played basketball, South DeKalb Y. I did everything at the South DeKalb Y, actually.
Hmm.
I mean, and it was just so many little things that, I never felt like I was really alone in that space because you guys kept me in something, which I loved anyway. Because, now that I think about it, I was thinking back at this. Now, I know, for people that have dogs, sometimes we think that they are real kids. Okay, so I'm just going to I'm giving you that. But I think
Okay.
about, I'm like, man, I got to take Dutch to the park or she's going to keep me up all night. And I was like, I wonder if my parents looked at sports to just run me out. So I wasn't just.
It was not purely that, baby. It was not purely that. It was.
Yeah, sure. You
There
wanted me
was.
to get
There was a
skills,
lot of that.
maybe a
There
little
was. Yes.
teamwork.
Yes. Yes. When she gets home, the battery will be low. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
There is
So,
definitely some of that. Yes.
oh yeah. So yeah, this lady attack, and then I think, and then basketball, which I didn't really. That was like AAU and getting all my friends there, but a lot of that was, us being a village in a lot of ways, and people sharing their village with me, so that I had my sisters in a different
Hmm.
way through my team. Through all the teams, I mean, I basically had been in a team environment from 6 to when I graduated college, which was 21 or something.
Hmm.
And so those kind of things really teach you a lot. But I will say there's one coach that like completely, I would say, is worth mentioning, just because she literally made me pushed me into the leader that I am today.
So
And
before
that's
you before
Black.
before yes, so
Oh,
before you do that,
okay.
which is good
Okay.
because we still call her Coach Blackwell. She has a
I know.
PhD and
I
everything
can't
else.
call her anything else.
I don't know what else to call her. But you did have lots of coaches. So
Yes.
I just wanted to shout because they all had a different
Oh,
place.
100%. Yes.
So I
Actually.
just so there was, and I was trying to remember them all.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember Coach Gartrell, obviously,
Yeah,
with
Coach
I
Gartrell.
don't remember who coached the young basketball team.
I don't know,
Um,
but I will. I'm going through when I remember them. Coach
okay,
Frost,
Coach
which
Frost
was
with
at AAU, which
the
is
Skeegee
the
Tigerettes, by the
Stevie
way,
Tigerettes.
which
Yeah.
I had no idea what that meant until I started meeting people who went to Tuskegee, and they were
What's
like, "Greg,
Tuskegee?
what's wrong with you? What don't you understand about that?" I was like, "I just don't understand Tuskegee Tigerettes. I just." But
Now
so
you know.
yeah, now I know. So there was Coach Frost.
Hmm.
Then there was Coach Thomas Henry for
Yes.
Georgia. Was it
Yes,
the
Coach
Panthers?
Henry.
Was it the Georgia
I
Panthers? What
think
was
Georgia Panthers. You know this way better than me, man.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
And that was the AAU team.
that
So
was AAU.
yes, that went the one that was actually ranked number one in the nation at one of the tournaments we went to.
That was a fun team. That was a fun team.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
let's
Um,
see.
so
Uh,
so we'll
Coach,
come back.
uh,
Yeah,
you
go
don't
for it.
go into high school yet?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, that's
Oh,
where I was
okay. I
going
was
to go.
gonna say Coach Watkins,
Coach Watkins, absolutely,
uh,
and Coach Harris,
Coach Harris.
and uh, Terrell, who got
Yes,
married this
yeah.
weekend. Can you
Yeah.
believe that? Yes.
I can't, I can because I should, because I mean all of us, but um that's
Right.
really awesome. Yes, that's
Yes,
really,
yes.
yeah.
So, and that team, by the way, went to the Final Four like 3 of the years. You actually got a state championship
I do
ring,
have a state ring,
uh,
2004. Mhm.
2004.
And
Absolutely.
I don't know if I played in that. I may have played about a strong minute or 2 minutes. It was my
I think
sophomore
you did.
year.
I
I
think you
was
did.
there. I
But you were
was
there. You were in the picture. I got it. I have the sticker, bumper sticker, and everything, T-shirts and all that
right,
stuff.
right, right.
Then, of course, and it was college.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
um, and the college experience, which you probably will talk about more at length in a future episode, because college,
That's a
lots of things like,
different. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that was so many changes because I was no longer at my house with my
right,
parents.
correct, correct.
So,
But
yes, yeah.
Coach Will Dunn,
Hmm.
who saw you at a tournament that we were in at Swanee, and
Hmm.
uh,
Where I lost my retainer. I know that's not, but I remember.
well,
I was like, got
hey,
something out of that.
take that as a note. Lose a retainer, get a
Right,
college scholarship. There you go.
right.
There you go.
I'll
I
take
don't know
it.
if that's how it actually worked or not,
Right.
but who basically brought you into a D1 school
Mm-hmm.
and allowed you to have one of the best educations, because we looked
Mm-hmm.
one of the best educations in Division 1, and really believed in you. I mean, you started as a freshman there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so a confidence level that came from that, and
Mm-hmm.
Coach Penix and Coach
Mm-hmm.
Williams. Um,
Yeah.
we learned a few things about a couple of coaches along the
Yeah.
way that
Yeah.
we'll talk about later. But
Yeah.
the coach that's probably spanned the most time with
Mm-hmm.
you, not
Mm-hmm.
just as a coach on the court, but really kind of a life coach,
Mm-hmm.
is Dawn Blackwell.
Yeah.
Coach,
Yeah. Coach
Coach,
Blackwell.
Coach
Does she
Blackwell.
have a first name? I don't
She
even know.
does. She does. She does. I found it when we became friends on Facebook. And I'm not gonna lie,
I know it's
I was a little
weird.
intimidated to be her friend on Facebook. I was like, that's Coach Blackwell. I gotta make sure. I gotta make sure I don't do
Right,
anything to
right.
embarrass myself.
Who is this Dawn, you say?
Yes, but now Dr. Dawn Blackwell.
Yes. Yes.
So that was at Stevenson Middle School.
Stevenson
Um,
Middle School.
so talk a little bit about that
Mm-hmm.
uh, chieftain in that village, because I know she's super special.
Yeah. So I would say I can tell you moments and how they shape me. That's probably
Okay.
the best way because there's that's really I think the best way to describe it.
Hmm.
So I remember it was eighth grade, and she selected me to be the team captain. Right, this is like through training and through workouts and stuff like that. I was chosen to be the team captain. Now this, it was like a Saturday morning or something. We were having practice, and everybody was just sloppy. It was just bad. She was over it, and she made us do. We were running, and it was just, and we would go back, do bad again. I mean, it was just like one of those
I
like,
don't know this story, by the way,
oh,
everybody. This
okay,
is
so
the
this
first
is
time I'm
great.
hearing it. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so we're running like crazy, and so and I think I remember, and it's gonna be funny. I wonder if she remembers this too. But at the time, also, by the way, I think her son is like 18 or 19 now. She was
Yeah,
pregnant with him when this happened. Okay.
correct.
So now the things that I know now that I don't know, there was a lot of energy in those running. Okay. So we're doing like the foot exercises and or the rapid fire is what they call it
Hmm.
when you're doing that with your feet.
Hmm.
I'm doing it with my feet, but I realize you can't see. Um, so people just kept on stopping and so she was like, no, stop. Team captain, come up here. And so she was like, and don't stop until I tell you. Right. So that was the first time that I was responsible, being called out for my team. Because that whole time, I mean, I'm like, cheering us on like anybody else, but it was now my responsibility that my team was not doing what they were supposed to do.
Mm.
That was the first time. I'm in eighth grade. And I'm like, why am I getting? But again, I'm the captain. And that
Right.
was the first time that accountability really
Mm.
came in, leadership and pushing people and also having to say things that you feel uncomfortable saying because you know what the best should look like. Like now I have to be forced to tell my friend that, hey, you can go faster than that. And that's
Mm.
not an easy place to be. And I'll say, as far as a lesson, and not only help me say that to other people, but even for myself. Like, are you really going as hard as you should be? Would you tell this to somebody else, and so on? So anyway, back to the story.
Hmm.
So when I tell you this woman, we are like, I mean, easily this far, and she, I mean, is like, come on, come, this is your team, right? And so I am the level of fire that I gained from that. I was like, because it was like she turned on that gear, whatever that I like to call this greatness gear. It was just like it was like an unstoppable, it was a button that just like I was like unstoppable. Like no matter what she did or said to me, I was going to keep on going. which obviously I think anybody's watching
Yeah.
would know how important that is for life. To keep
Right.
going even when it hurts, when it's annoying, when it's not even your fault.
Right.
And
Mhm.
it's but you still, this is your responsibility and this is what you've been given, so you have to do it. So and I remember her yelling after that. I'm doing it for a while, and she yelled at my team because she was like, "You guys are just gonna sit there and watch her? You're not gonna do it with her?" And
Mm.
then everybody started doing it, and that was one of those moments. It's so crazy how clear I see it that day. Though that day changed my life, and it pushed me into. I remember after that practice, one, I got a lot of respect from my teammates because I didn't yell at them. I just did it, which
Mm.
goes back to one of your favorite quotes, and the quotes that you told me is like, example is not the main method of influence, it's the only method of influence. Albert
Absolutely.
Einstein.
Yep.
And so I was like, that's the kind of leader I want to be. I don't want to be the one harping on everybody because that's not even a leader.
Right.
That so I learned so much from that, and from then I had such which is crazy, somebody yelling at you in your face, but it's
Mhm.
pushed because I knew she loved me and she believed in me.
Yeah.
When I don't know that, that doesn't feel like that. That doesn't feel like a push. It doesn't feel like from a good place.
It
It
feels
feels
like
just
abuse.
me. Yeah, yeah,
Right.
abuse. But I knew the conversations that we had and all those things. I knew that it was making me strong. I felt it in me.
Well,
So, and then the second moment was when she gave me uh, a letter, or
I
it
remember
was a card
it was a
when
card
I graduated middle school. I think
from
it
middle
wasn't even
school.
high school; it was middle school. And I remember her telling me that was the first time that I realized that she was not the only. I was not the only one gaining from that relationship. That
Mm.
was when she shared with me, like, I don't know if you know that you were my angel, and you helped me through this, and you helped me keep. And I was just like,
Mm.
I had no idea. I'm trying to get through it fast because it's like a
Yeah.
moment, but I
Take your
kept
time.
that. I mean, easily into, and I'm pretty sure it's upstairs. I'm pretty sure that is the. I don't even know if she knows that I still have that. Right, Melissa. I saw Melissa. Wow,
Mhm.
exactly. Um, and so from there, she was just like, I just don't know if you know how much you made a difference. And the what I learned from that was be yourself, be love, be because you have no idea how that's impacting somebody else. And you have no idea what you being completely who you are. And I mean, at seventh grade, I don't even know who I was, but fast forward to now and
Right.
applicably is just being exactly who you are and letting your light shine unapologetically can also help someone. I get that all the time in my life now. So big up to Coach Blackwell.
Yep.
That was huge. Those are two huge lessons for me that I've taken for the rest of my life. That's why,
Well,
I
and I'm glad you talked about it because this is against the backdrop of you being now, what, 12 years old, 11,
mm-hmm,
12 years old,
mm-hmm,
um, eh, on this journey that we're on.
yeah, mm-hmm,
And there's things that your mom could give you, and there's
mm-hmm,
things that I can give you. And but I think the power of the village is the fact that the village can also give to you, but it can give to you in a way that doesn't land the same way
right,
as when it comes from your mom or when it comes from your dad.
mm-hmm,
And so, she knows to this day I would move heaven and earth for her because it wasn't just that. Because when you got a little older, when we were starting to look at,
yep,
college,
college,
she actually did workouts with you too.
mm-hmm, she sure
Um,
did,
and
yep.
I asked her, I said,
Hey, I completely forgot about that.
yeah,
Yep,
I
she
asked her,
sure
I
did.
said, "Can you help Danielle?" Because she's getting to the next level, and she's like, "Absolutely." So she would, I think y'all would be in the gym at the middle school, like on
Yeah,
Saturdays or
I
something like that.
remember that. I
Yeah,
remember it lightly now. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we sure
But I
did.
mean, remember her teaching you how to do a crossover and all this stuff? Because Danielle, for those of you who don't know, is are you 6'1"? I don't. I remember it was.
I
It's
mean, on the college roster, they put me at 6'1", but truly, I'm 5'11". I mean,
oh,
for really,
that's your social. That was your
that's
social
my
height.
social. I
Yeah.
mean, at this, I don't care. It
Right.
depends
Right.
on
Right.
what
Right.
shoes I have on. Most days, I have on slide, so it's usually 5'11". If I have
So
on some nice Max, then it's.
but you grew almost a foot in like a year and a half. So you
Mm-hmm.
went from being the smallest, skinniest kid on the soccer team
Right.
easily to
Mm-hmm.
being one of the tallest people on every team. I mean, you played forward and center, the
Mm-hmm.
rest of your career after career. Like that's weird. But
I
anyway,
mean,
your
it
basketball
was.
career, yeah.
Yeah, it was a thing.
Um, but I think it was that she knew what you needed as well. So
Mm-hmm.
she was not just teaching you basketball. You
Mm-hmm.
know, she probably saw in you because one of the things that happens with a lot of kids that are, and this is just what I've heard from even adult friends, is
Mm-hmm.
that the trauma of being separated and having, two different households and not, you don't know what's going on, is that it can really attack a child's confidence,
Mm.
and their sense of
Wow. I
where
didn't know. Okay.
where do I belong in here? Where do I fit in here? You talked about, early on, the thing that I think a lot of kids think about is, you know, is this my fault? And,
Mhm,
so it was in that journey with I think all of your coaches, all of them gave you something different.
mhm,
But that is a big thing that kids, it's a combination of anger and frustration and do I fit and do I belong and am I right? Am I the person I'm supposed to be? And
mhm,
so making sure that there's a village there that pours into your child, because there were things that I know I could say to you that if Coach Blackwell said them to you would land on you completely differently.
mhm, mhm.
uh, and by the way, I never told Coach Blackwell, to say this to Danielle, do that in front of
Sure.
her.
That's
No, absolutely not. No, because I was afraid of Coach Blackwell. But that the village is important in that way. So
Mhm,
uh, I guess as a takeaway, as people are listening to this, and we're talking about this journey that you and I have been on uh, for so long, that there's a couple of takeaways. One is that if you are in the village, if you are part of the village, all they need you to do is love them.
yeah.
They don't need anything special. They don't need a special toolbox. They don't need you stirring the pot around,
Mhm,
either family. They just don't need that. If you have someone in your life that has, and quite frankly, we talk about dad from distance. I'm still a dad from a distance.
mhm,
You will always be that, because it's part of how you emerged earlier in life. So that relationship, even today, it's important for the village just to love, not
right.
to be looking back and and giving you all whatever dirt you think you had, and if you only
Mhm,
knew this, because that's not helpful. the,
mhm,
the greatest thing that the village does is love, and if you are in this situation, um, the village wants to love you,
mhm.
but they don't want to. There's boundaries that they're not going to cross if you don't let them in. So I want to pivot to a couple of, because I actually got a very specific question around the village when we posted, this on our
Okay.
Facebook.
Uh,
So one of the questions I got was, what if the village is carrying pitchforks and torches?
uh,
Uh, as in like a horror movie, like in,
yeah.
you know,
My immediate was saying that's not your village, but
well,
that can be.
it
I
could be
mean,
your surroundings.
surroundings.
So
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm,
And it reminded me So I'm going to use a question just to take it away from anybody I know right now.
Mhm.
Because when people hear this, you know how people are on social media, they're like, "Is he talking about? Is that?" So this is this. No one I know that is could possibly be on Facebook would be bearing witness to me putting their stuff in the street. So
Mhm.
10 years ago or 11 years ago, when I wrote the book, I started going all on all these little podcasts, talking about the book, and we're trying to
Mhm.
do my little low key promotional tour of Dad from
Mhm.
a Distance.
Mhm.
And so I would get on these call-in shows. And so I had a guy ask a question that was very interesting. It was a young guy, and he said, "Well, um, my he didn't have custody of his child. Uh, I don't think they were. I don't think there was any. There was no formal legal documents or anything. He was just the baby's daddy. Okay,
Mhm.
and did not get along at all well with the mom or the mom's family. So he was kind of on the outs.
Mhm.
He admitted that some of that was him, um, but he got invited to his daughter's 5-year birthday party, 5th year birthday party. She's turning 5 years old at probably Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. And uh, so he didn't really have any family in that space. So, but he got an invitation, and he said it was kind of like a backhanded invitation. Like, we are having, your daughter's birthday party. If you can squeeze in the time for her, we would love to. It was like one of those kind of things. And so
Mhm.
he was asking because it hadn't happened yet. It was like
Mhm.
going to be like a week from now.
Ah, okay.
He said, "So should I go? Because I know all those people are going to be there are, I'm just going to be, they're going to be glaring at me because I know what they do already, that and how they talk to me when I pick my daughter up. It's like all this stuff." So he said, "So should I go knowing I'm going to be in the middle of all that mess?" Which was a really interesting question to
Mhm.
ask someone that is a total stranger, which tells me that he was really struggling with
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you what I said, but I'm going to ask you, Danielle, what you would have said to him if he asked you that question. What would you have advised?
I would have said absolutely because
Okay.
your kid's gonna remember that you weren't there. That's
Mm,
that's what I would say because even and I can't really speak on it because not I can speak on it, but I'm not a parent, right?
mhm.
So I can't say, I don't put myself in situations that I don't want to go to. But with this kind of level of responsibility of this being your child, I would say it would do more damage to the kid than anything you can endure. And for the child, I hope you can get through that. That's what I would suggest.
And by the way, Danielle did not know I was going to ask her that. That
No, I
was
didn't.
completely out of
No.
the blue. But everyone watching, I'm sure caught how quickly you answered it. It was like,
Hmm.
yes, absolutely go.
Yeah.
There was no contemplation, no
Hmm.
qualification, no under this circumstance or under this. You should
Right.
go.
Hmm.
Just go.
Hmm.
So I told him the same thing, but
Hmm.
then I also gave him a little tough love because he pushed back. I said, "You
Yeah.
should absolutely go because your child is going to look for you. You know,
Hmm.
children look for their parents.
Yeah.
Um, Even if they understand why they're not there, they miss them.
You're
That's why
right.
you should always go to everything. Even if you have to take time off from work to go to stuff that you would not ordinarily go, whether it's PTA, whatever it is, you go, you go, you go, you go. So I told him you should go, and he's like, "Yeah, but you just don't know her people." And talking about the mom's people, and so what I
Hmm.
told him was, first of all, I don't care.
Right.
Um, I don't know her people, and I don't care. I just know that's your daughter. Your job is to show up. So I'm gonna need you to man up a little bit and
Hmm.
show up. What will this be? An hour and a half, 2 hours of your entire existence?
Right. Yeah.
Suck it up and
Hmm.
go.
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about you. And I think the that's where his head was, even though he
Yeah.
wouldn't admit it, it was about him. He didn't want to
Mhm.
go through all of this. Well, it's not about you. It's not your
Right.
birthday party. Okay.
Right.
It's not your daughter's mom's birthday party. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't go to that one if you felt that way either. But
Right.
this is your daughter's birthday party. But this is the other thing that I told him that I would want people to hear is that even in that camp that he is defining as like the enemy camp, somebody there in that space is advocating for you. Give them something to work with.
Right. Mm. That's deep.
Somebody in that sphere
Yeah.
is when you show up and then you're gone. If all of this stuff starts, that person is going to say, y'all need to give him a break. At least he showed
Right.
up.
Right.
Don't take away from the allies that you don't even know that you
Mhm.
have, even in difficult spaces, because you always have allies in difficult spaces. And even in that space, and he was describing it as if he was going into an absolute war zone.
Mhm.
There's somebody in that space that wants you to succeed with your daughter, and
Mhm.
probably more people than you know.
Mhm.
So, don't take power away from them being able to advocate for you by you not showing up. Because if you don't show up, you let that whatever that negative opinion of you is win, and
Yeah.
that narrative becomes a
Mhm.
thing.
And it
So,
continues.
absolutely. So,
Mhm.
in fact, we'll talk about because that was a 5-year-old um, prom night.
Mhm.
So, on your prom night, I know you remember this. I came to your mom's house
You did.
on prom night
Mhm.
and took pictures with you. Uh,
Mhm.
kind of took pictures with the dude. I, you
It
know, I'm a dad.
I
I'm
know.
just gonna say, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that would not normally be something that a lot of people would think. Like you would go over there on prom night to your um, former wife's house on your daughter's prom night. Hell yeah,
Yeah.
because I know how that's one of those moments.
Mhm.
It's probably
Mhm.
the most dressed up you had ever been at that point in time in your life.
Right.
And it's the prom. Now, when we
Mhm.
look back on the prom, it's like, really, did we really invest that much
But
energy into it?
you know what? It made it was important at the time, you know.
Yes,
It was the
yes,
biggest thing I had going, other than
yes,
graduation, you know. So
yes. But I also did. I'm not gonna lie about it. I
mhm.
did want your date to know that there was a presence that
Right,
he ought to be keeping in his
right.
head.
Yeah, yeah,
So, because that's what my job is. I always
yeah.
laugh about that, even with, because now there's 3 girls. So you're the youngest, then
Mhm,
Melody, then Simi, Alicia, and Danielle. Now, by the way, one day we'll talk about the fact that um, I always refer to you as my daughters. I never separate you, and because
mhm,
that's a completely different conversation.
mhm, mhm,
Um, but that I've always told all of you, and one of our episodes is going to get to dating and relationships, and
mhm. Yeah,
because that's a whole different thing.
it sure
But
is.
but I
Sure is.
but I've told even your coaches, especially the ones as you got a little older, the message was always pretty clear. It was like, look, if you're in Danielle's corner, I'm in your corner. It's that simple. If,
Yeah,
however, you are at any point in time not in Danielle's corner, you will
yeah.
be looking at me across the ring because I will be. I that's it's very
Where's she going?
that is correct. Exactly. Look, this is Melissa. This is one
Exactly.
of Danielle's longest term friends. All that energy.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Mhm,
Because
mhm,
you know, uh, there was a question that someone asked, and I'm going to get you to answer this too, because I
okay.
know you got a couple of questions too.
Mhm,
Um, one of them was that the person said, "Can you give us 3 tips of things that you would think about that you think would be helpful for someone that's going through, or if you know someone who might be going through, or, are there 3 tips you could give to help them out? So, what is one thing you would give as a tip? You take the kid side of things.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say from what side.
Yeah.
So that's hard because I think I have to take the adult approach because the kid
Okay.
is you could be a kid at so many different
Yes.
levels of time that
Good call. Good
it's
call.
hard. Yeah. So what I would tell the parents
Hmm.
is, and I think you say this all the time. Remember what's best for the kid. The kid is and should be the most important. How are they going to be their best, and how can you do that? I think that should be the focus. That's one that I've heard you say, and I know that that's one that I really appreciate being on the other side of.
So I want you to know that the answer, because I wrote down a couple of these because there's a
Mhm,
ton of them, was to I'll see you what you just said, but also
mhm,
make sure everybody in your orbit understands that your priority lies with your child.
mhm,
So, if you're whether it's a business situation like we talked about a couple of episodes ago, where the person was like, we want you to go, and I was like, nope, that's my time with my daughter.
mhm,
Or it's your buddies wanting to go hang out and go someplace, and it's your weekend. um uh no, it's my weekend. uh,
mhm,
and
mhm,
I'm not taking her with me to be with y'all on her weekend. This is her weekend. That
mhm,
everybody in your circle needs to know that there is a priority.
mhm.
And um and there's a couple of times where I had to say that in such a way that it's like, look, I enjoy you being my friend, but I'm gonna need you to know that if that doesn't work for you, I'm not
Right,
gonna hate you, but you're out.
right,
It's that
right.
simple.
Mhm,
So uh because I know that if I'm saying that to them, then I'm going to also live it out
mhm,
um when I'm spending my time with you.
mhm,
Um so here's another one that, and a couple of these actually come out of the book, but this is another one that I think is really, really important, especially when the kids are younger, is don't make your child a messenger to the other parent.
mhm,
So, you know, don't tell Danielle, I need you to tell your mother she needs that I'm going to come pick you up at 6:30. That should never happen. Your child should never be a messenger to the other parent. If you have something to say to the other parent, you say it to the other parent, because because I know kids that have been put in that situation, where even Danielle, the dad gave the child support check to
mhm,
the child to give to their mother.
mm. Yeah,
That your kid has nothing to do with that.
right.
That's not a space you should put them in, because they are not an arbiter between the two of you. They are not a go between. They are not a translator. They're not an interpreter. They are not a messenger. They are the kid. That's all their job is to be your kid. So
Yeah.
do not make them a messenger. So I'll flip back to you. Is there something
Mhm.
else that you would think that would be a tip?
Um, I don't know if I have any that are coming off the top of my head. I think it's really, to me, just because I've only been in that space, is focusing on the kid. But I feel like
Mhm.
your book has some really well thought out ones.
Well, so when I mentioned in the first episode when I was writing it, like I wrote it like in 2 weeks and my fingers were
Uh-huh.
cramped and all this other kind of stuff. But it is such there so many of the things that are so I was talking to one of my fraternity brothers yesterday morning, and we were
Mhm.
talking about this podcast because we're calling it a podcast. It's not really a podcast. It's our little thing. Well, I guess if you want to call it a podcast, you
Yeah,
can.
I mean,
Um,
sometimes you got to put things, yeah.
yeah, it puts it in some context. So uh, he was talking about. So he has 2 kids now. He has 2 sons.
Mhm.
They're little. One is 1, and I think one is 2.5 or maybe 3. So they're really young. And so we were talking about he was shouting you out on the fact that you said, when he was not as young as you, but close to it, that he
Mhm.
had a lot of individual time with his mom and a lot of individual time with his dad, and
Yeah.
that it was really, really cool. But
Mhm.
this is what he said that was really interesting as our conversation uh, went on a little bit. He said, the more I think about what you guys are talking about, is really, you know, it's these are parent kid stuff in general. I mean, you're talking about it through the lens of your journey with, being separated from Danielle early on. But he said, when you said that, what it reminded me is that I should definitely have time with my sons where I
Mm.
just go with them and I
Yeah, so they have that.
let
Yeah.
mom because do whatever she wants or nothing at all with that time, just
Mhm.
so they have time just with me. Uh,
Mm.
and and I said, yeah. And I'm telling you, you have two kids. Let me tell you what else is important. You should have that kind of time with each kid.
Mhm.
That you take this son and you have an event day with one son, so that son, because when you have multiple kids, there's divided,
Yeah.
attention and that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. And kids get that; they understand pretty quickly how it goes. But that kind of solo time is important. And it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter whether you're in a divorced household or not. That's still a really important thing to do.
Mhm.
Um, so here's another one that, and because there's another question I want to get to too. Is the whole idea of I guess the third thing for me would be, and this is difficult for people in general, but it's important, and that is when you're wrong, own it
Mm.
and say so.
Yeah.
If you said the wrong thing, say so. If you did the wrong thing, say so. If you didn't do anything you should have done something, say so. And say so without qualifications or rationalizations or excuses or any of that, because nobody cares. Your kid does not care why you missed the recital. They don't care. You can tell them you had a business client that was the biggest business client of the year. A 7-year-old could care less. A
Right.
10-year-old could care less. Quite frankly, a 16-year-old could care less. So if you know that you did something, and this, by the way, is not just something for parents, but it's something for kids too, especially when you get older, because we say things sometimes in the heat of conversation. Um, and so Gary John Bishop is somebody that has written a bunch of. If you've never read any books by Gary John Bishop, you should read them. I've had him. Jay and I have had him on another podcast. I've had him at a couple of speaking events, and he said something really interesting about this kind of thing, because I think it has something to do with what you were talking about earlier. It's like, well, I don't know if the person who said, I don't know if I'll ever have that with my dad because of who they are, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So he said something really interesting. He said he asked a guy in one of his seminars, he said, well, do you think you have the capacity to change? And the guy was like, talking about a relationship with his dad. And
Mhm.
the guy said, yeah, I think I have the capacity to change. He said, then do you think your dad has capacity to change? He said, hell no. And he said to him, what kind of arrogant bleepity bleep bleep is that?
Mhm. Yeah.
That you think you have the capacity to change, but you don't think your dad does. That
Mm.
is not only hopelessness, it's also arrogance.
Mm.
Because what's happening is your dad is living into what you just said.
Mm.
So we closed the very first conversation around it not being too late. And I think a lot of folks, when we get older, especially, we start getting to the point where we just sign off on it. Like,
Mhm.
it ain't gonna be. I'm all, look, I'm good. I don't need it. I don't look. And if that's how you actually, truly, genuinely feel, everyone
Mhm.
has, you and I have talked about this 1,000 times.
Yeah,
You
I
have the
mean,
right to
sometimes
feel.
it's really,
You
yeah.
have the right to feel the way you feel. But
Mhm.
understand, and I can tell you this from a dad's point of view, that I don't know a single father who would not give both arms and legs to be back. Now, they may not know how to do it. They may
Mhm.
not have had any role models for them to do it. So it's not like, they know exactly what they're doing. But I don't know any, not one. And I'm telling you, when we were doing those seminars with those guys, that some of whom had not spoken to or seen their kids in years, that broke into tears when they talk about their children.
Mhm.
So it is there. Now, if you don't want it, that's fine, because
Mhm.
you can choose. But if you are giving up on it, understand that it is you that is making the decision to give up on it. And you should own that too,
Mhm.
because there are fathers right now that have not seen their children since they were born, that cry about it in their old age today.
Mhm.
And it's hard for a kid to believe that. Well, why didn't he call me? Why? Look, it's like something. It's like stuff that happens with me. If you've ever, like, I was supposed to. We talked about this the other day. I was supposed to call you. I didn't call you. It's like, doggone it. Then the next day I didn't call you. Now I don't call you because I didn't call you. And then I was like, now I feel bad because well, she probably don't want me to call you. And all of a sudden, this timeline gets longer and longer and longer. So there's like, if I do it now, will she even answer the phone?
And I'll add to that too, because another piece that I've heard from some of my friends that are older and have been kind of trying to work on this relationship with their parents is sometimes some parents will put that responsibility on the kids that
Mm-hmm.
they need to, well, if they want to talk to me, then if they want a relationship with me, then they need to make a way. I did, and so I've heard that a couple of times. I find it to be kind of sad, only because from their point of view, excuse me, it was more than just them saying that they would do, like, you need to reach out to me, but it's been like that their whole life.
Right,
So
right. Mm,
so so since I'm a kid, it's been my responsibility to say, "Can I come to your house?" It's been my responsibility to do this and that. So there's so many things when I'm having these conversations with peers of mine when
yep.
they talk about their fathers, particularly, and mothers too, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can't even relate to that. I don't even know what it would be like if I was the one that was responsible for all the interaction
Well,
completely.
well, so that is so important that you said that,
Mhm.
because I want to make sure I amend what I said or clarify what I just said before.
Mhm.
And that is that I do not advocate for dads who don't give a shit.
Mhm. Right.
Zero. I have zero. There's nothing in me trying to
Yeah.
help. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not where I'm going. I
Mhm.
would like to believe, I'm a Christian. This is Easter, you know, that there's redemption. I get it.
Mhm.
Um, but as I've said a number of times, I don't live in Heathenville anymore, but I still have property there. So,
Right.
there is a point of diminishing return when it comes to
Yeah.
these things. And forgive me,
Mhm.
all my Christian friends who probably think less of me now, maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
But
no, I'm not.
yeah. But if there's a lack of will to do it,
Mhm.
like, they do not want to. That's
Right.
not who we're talking about. That's not
Yeah.
who this conversation is
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But
We're talking. Yeah.
I do know that for a lot of guys, they don't know how,
Right. Right.
and that's what these conversations are about.
Right.
And what I
Right.
do know is that if I'm left too long not knowing how, then it will turn into me not just not doing it all.
Mhm.
One will turn into the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't give anybody a pass for,
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
I've had some serious conversations with people that are like, look, you can't even. sit down at the table with me yet if you've not
Mm-hmm.
done anything. But that's not everybody.
Yeah.
And I think it, we just have to own our part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's relationships in general.
Yeah, I do.
So,
I completely agree.
and be okay with it, wherever
Mhm.
it is. So, but this has been the conversation around the village, Danielle. So,
Yeah,
um, this has
we
been
did
awesome.
that.
Yes.
And,
So
and
it is.
I want to bring this up too, real
Yeah.
quick. We
Go ahead.
will discuss how we. I feel like we really need to get on how we talk to each other. I don't realize how weird it is for people when they hear us talking to each other.
Yes.
So we need to pick up on that. And please give us your questions if you want us to talk about anything next time. We want to keep those coming.
Absolutely. So yes, because she does call me player, and I call her player and shouty, and and the whole 9 yards. Because communication is important.
It
But
is. It is.
we will leave you on this Easter. Uh, Happy Easter, because the Easter is a representation of a new chance that
Mhm.
you can rise. That someone has done that for us, and if it's been done for us, maybe just a little bit, we can think about doing it for other people too. So I love you, Danielle Gray.
Love you too,
All
Daddy.
right. All right, everybody. Have a fantastic one. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.